You're enjoying Racing World. It's brought to you by Perspective Group. It's your global motorsport podcast show brought to you in conjunction with Race Control Magazine.
Well, it's the month of May, and that can only mean one thing. It's the countdown to the 107th running of the Indy 500 presented by Gamebridge. Yes, it's May again, and there's plenty on. But in some parts of the world, it's still April, and that was Barber Motorsport Park this morning. And this is Racing World for the first day in May. Welcome to another edition of Racing World. I had intended to fully do a show after the test, or the open test at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Rain stopped the second day of testing, and really there wasn't a major amount to report about. Lots of laps done, lots of things happened, so I've combined it into this show so we talk about Indy and everything else all at the same time. So looking back at that open test, the full day that they had, everyone ran a lot of laps. New aero kit on the car, which we'll talk about shortly. And then since then, the 34th entry for RC Enerson under the Able Motorsports banner has been announced for this year's 500. So we will have a bump day. Someone will go home 1 week before that race starts, because 34 does not make 33, that's for sure. Will it be a driver that we don't expect? It's always highly likely. Anything is possible at Indy. We wish RC Enerson and everyone at Able Motorsport all the best. Will they be the surprise and make the field? And who won't make the field? Only time will tell. But that's a good thing to look forward to. But looking more towards the test, there were some great things that did happen. Joseph Newgarden topping the timesheets. Everyone had a pretty good run up there. Dixon was there amongst it. As I said, lots of laps turned. Just a good performance, no major incidents to report. A lot of people went home happy. The Penske boys went home happy, but as they all reiterated, that what you ran then may not be the same deal come the month of May, so time will tell on that one. Got to speak, however, to Joseph Newgarden and Stefan Wilson during the press conference period that was held at the conclusion of day one.
David, go ahead, you're next.
Thanks very much, Dave. I'll direct this mainly to Joseph, just because he's got so many text messages coming in at the moment. I just wanted to know, like Bruce and Jack have talked about all these new aero parts that we've got. Is it going to impact in terms of how the cars race side by side or in traffic with each other?
Definitely in traffic. I think if it's weather's such a big component. If it's a 65-degree day with low wind, you'd be more packed up than what you were going to be today. And I don't think everybody was as loaded up as maybe they could be today. So everyone's going to try and find that right balance and efficiency. But I think just purely speaking from what's available, there will be more load on the cars than last year. That should pack everyone up theoretically. I think that will happen. I don't think you're going to get the Texas effect. This is not a two-lane racetrack. It's at least not currently. Outside of restarts and starts, you're not going to have side by side, lap after lap. You're going to have really exciting restarts, really exciting, start to the race, but then it's going to be a matter of, how do you work traffic, et cetera. And I think the goal would be, giving a little bit more of the front runners an opportunity to shuffle around. Typically, it's just been the front two that have been shuffling, and I think if we can get that shuffle to go 3-4 deep, and then even giving people opportunities in the mid pack to make moves more often. That's really the goal without overstepping it. And it just remains to be seen if we've struck that right balance. It's just very hard to predict off of just today.
And then just quickly to all three of you, you turn up at a test like this with the car that you're potentially taking to the 500 or your 500 car. Does it subconsciously sit on your mind, the fact that this is the car, so we can't do anything, we can't go and hit a wall, say, today, because it's going to put us on the back foot? Like, does that ever play on your mind at all?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been at the shop, the driving rumble guys have spent so many hours working on these cars and getting them prepared. So that weighs on your mind a lot, especially looking at the weather forecast last night and I saw how windy it was going to be. It just sort of makes you that risk versus reward calculation is always weighing on your mind. And I think from that, because of that, I felt like I was, probably a bit risk averse today and not wanting to take too many risks. If I ever felt anything uncomfortable, or if we got old on tires and we were deep in the pack and it was like, I think I want to pit now and just put new tires on and let's get back into another pack, because we've got a couple of weeks before May starts, but an incident today would have set us back a long way, and I don't want to do that to the guys.
Well, it's great to see you back at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I look forward to catching up with all three of you in just a couple of weeks' time. Well, as we said, there was no day two. The rain hit and completely washed out the day, and it was a wise decision not to do that. There was an option to run on the Saturday, but everyone was very keen to get to Barber Motorsport Park for the event that was held this morning. So the teams opted not to utilise any chance of a reserve day, and so did IndyCar, which I think was a good call. And everyone's back there in a few weeks' time. But very impressive to see the number of laps that were turned, and interesting to hear what variables we now can have in this new Aero kit configuration, or the Aero add-ons. And I'm sure come qualifying, we're going to see a lot of different things play themselves out, and then also traffic in the race. So it's good that the teams have some options, because it means there are options, and with that becomes different approaches, different strategies, different thoughts, and you get a good race out of it. So that'll be good to look forward to. Moving on, just down the road to the Barber Motorsport Park, brilliant facility, absolutely brilliant. Renewed its contract to the end of 2027 with IndyCar over the weekend, so Barber's on the calendar for quite some time to come. Just an amazing facility. The sculptures and things around the track are phenomenal, big spiders and all sorts of things, but it's a great facility. And again, there was new additions to the Aero kit for this. I spoke to Scott McLaughlin about it. There was a new device that gets bolted onto effectively the front part of the tub, or to the chassis or bodywork, and it's to deflect the water away from the Aero screen in a wet weather situation. There was talk that maybe rain would arrive at Barber. It didn't, thankfully. It was a brilliant day. But the teams were all delivered the first of these parts. They've only just been released from Dallara after months of testing and fluid research with both Dallara and IndyCar, and I got to talk to McLaughlin about that.
Yeah. Let's take a couple off Zoom. David Turner, your turn with Scott McLaughlin.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Hey, Scott. First thing, I don't know whether it'll come into play this weekend or not, but I've been reading a lot about the new sort of wind deflector that there is for the rain, if there's a rain situation. Can you tell us anything about that at all?
I can't really, because I haven't really run with it, but the one thing that's really good about IndyCar is they learn from all the, what we've learned in the past. And Indy GP was our last wet race, and we learned that we need to deflect some water off the screen, and that's ultimately what it's going to do. I think we're just going to be constantly learning in that process. I think it's a good step. I think it's going to help in some ways, and it's something that's optional. I think I don't know enough of it until we get into the wet race, but I'm sure the studies, the CAD drawings, and everything that they've done in the wind tunnels and whatnot. I think they'll be all over it, and it'll be an improvement. But we're constantly involved in the screen. It's going to be a new thing each time, but we'll see.
And then just finally, I spent some time with your mum and dad the other day down in the mighty Waikato. And I've come up with this idea to help the bus bros out, because I feel that they need some help. So I'm bringing you a personalised care package from New Zealand in a week's time that will include things like ginger nuts, chocolate fish, and other things that people don't really fully understand. So if you need to add to that, let us know.
These Americans don't understand how good it is down there, David. It is some good food down there, team. So we'll bring onto Bus Pros for sure. Would love that. And
you can use my code. It's called Kiwi.
Nice.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, David. Load up the luggage so we all get a taste of that stuff, will you?
The luggage chocolate fish is good, man.
Chocolate fish.
Yeah. That's it's like chocolate, a little bit of caramel kind of thing, but then like a pink marshmallow inside and wrapped in chocolates.
Okay,
it's legit.
All right.
Yeah, it's legit.
You had me at chocolate.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Be very interesting when that's put to the test, because it's certainly another way that IndyCar keeps thinking about improvements to this category and improvements to the car and improvements to driver safety at the foreforce. So it's a great initiative. Onward to qualifying, and really it became a bit of a stoush match, but in the end it was Romain Grosjean for Andretti Autosport that took the top spot. The Kiwis were in amongst it. Marcus Armstrong had a few little bits not maybe go his way. Dixon was in there, McLaughlin was in there, but in the end, as I said, it was Grosjean that took out the top spot.
Through, and then the fast 12, I got the fastest lap again, and in the fast 6, I think my first attempt should have been better. Made a mistake in 12 and 13, so won again, and the car was good. I think we we've shown that we've got a very strong baseline, very strong package this year on street course and road course, and overall is getting good as well. Honda's done a very good job, especially after yesterday where we had the engine blowing off in practice. So we lost the whole free practice one, which was not ideal, but luckily I've got very good teammates and I could rely on them to kind of work on my setup. And Olivier made a few changes between practice 2 and quali, and that worked well. So yeah, happy for the team, happy for the result, and looking forward to the race.
Then looking at the Kiwis, Dixon had a good run there, and the PNC Bank machine certainly has got plenty of mojo behind it, and the Iceman is always one that you can never rule out. And I had the chance to catch up with Scott.
Interesting day. I think honestly we were favoured maybe a little bit more on the black tyres. We didn't quite get it right on the reds. Great to make it to Q3. Great for the team car as well. I think we should have been P3. Made a pretty big mistake in turn 9 on my last lap, which cost us about a 10th and a half, and I think that would have been good for P2 or P3. So we'll start P5, looking for a smooth race tomorrow and see what we bring.
And then amongst the Ganassi teammates that Dixon has this year, Kiwi Marcus Armstrong was all there. Probably had the hard lesson learned about rules and how they're interpreted in IndyCar after a qualifying misunderstanding, I think we'll call it. But Marcus, pushed to the back of the field as a result of that, about impeding on a warm-up lap. Can see his side of it, can see IndyCar's side of it. At the end of the day, the rules are rules. Marcus now knows those rules and they won't be repeated again, that's for sure. But did have the chance to catch up with Armstrong.
It was reasonable. We were P7 in group up until we got an interference penalty. I was on my warm-up lap, and to be fair, so was everyone else. So unfortunately, we got a penalty for that. But nevertheless, IndyCar races are chaotic, and I'm sure that we'll have opportunities tomorrow to make the most of it.
Onward then to the race, and there was 2 approaches to this race, a 3-stop strategy or a 2-stop strategy. The 2 slightly meant that you needed to be slightly in fuel conservation mode. The 3 meant that you could run hard. The way that would work, however, would be the fall of the yellow. If the yellow came out too early, those on the 3, their plan just went out the door. Those on the 2, it would kind of sway them more closer to a 3, but then everyone was on the level foot. So luck of the dice sometimes is the way that happens, but in the end there was no early yellow as such, and we had a combination of 3 and 2-stop strategies, and it was Grosjean that led the field away and led for quite early on. Newgarden then had a go at the lead for quite some time, running on that 3-stop strategy, as were his 2 Penske teammates. There was plenty going on. There was 1 full course yellow when Stingray Rob stopped his car on the side of the track, but by and large the racing was hard and fast on what is a very demanding circuit. Went through another phase, came back through the fuel strategies again, and in the end it was the 2 boys that got together at Miami, which we've heard more than enough about, and it's not really worth going on about because it's hard racing, and that's what it is all about. And it was Grosjean and our own Scott McLaughlin that were fighting it out. In the end, McLaughlin, on that 3-stop strategy, had fuel to burn, unlike Grosjean, who didn't have the fuel to burn and had to drive a little bit more conservatively. But it was hard racing. McLaughlin passed him in the end and went on to take the lead and to take the race win. And it was a great win for him. Puts him back onto the board in this championship, and the Kiwi is back in amongst it, and a great way to start what is effectively the month of May for the team and for him himself. Got to talk to him straight after the race.
Let's take a couple off Zoom. David Turner, Racing World. Go ahead with Scott McLaughlin.
Thanks very much, Dave. Well, Scott, it's the start of May here in New Zealand because we're a day ahead of you, so that's a great way to kick off the month of May, so well done. From my point of view, I just want to know, when you're running on a different strategy to, say, the 2-stoppers were, and the race starts to play itself out, how much in your mind are you going, gee, I hope we made the right move here, or we should have gone the other way?
Yeah, Dave, I don't really, I just trust my team. I don't have any, the only concern I had was why we stopped so a couple laps after Joseph and we lost track position on him, but we eventually sort of caught up and basically passed him. So I wasn't too stressed about that. It was just a matter of just maximizing what I had and what my cards were, and that was getting through traffic and using our car pace. And we had talked about that in a strategy meeting this morning, and sort of knew what I had to do. So you just put, at the end of the day, I see a tenth of what everyone else sees on the stand. So I know that, I've got the best guys in pit lane, call all my strategies. So I just trust them, and it's a boring answer, but it legitimately for me, I was just ticking laps off in my head and driving as fast as I can, exactly to what I needed to do.
No, it's a cool answer. Thank you. You'll be pleased to know I heard from your dad. He said that was a pretty cool race, wasn't it? So I would assume he's quite happy right now.
I'm sure he is. He's probably having a beer. It's like 6 a.m. in the morning.
And then to round it off, because we'll see you next week, the Bus Bros care package is now fully sorted, and the chocolate fish for you and Dave are both in there.
Thank you. No worries.
Well done today, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
And that's what I wanted to hear, David. Thank you for that.
So as always, when you get that, we've had 4 races now, 4 different race winners this season. But what it does to the points table now, Marcus Ericsson on 130, Pato O'Ward on 127, Alex Palau hanging in there on 121, Scott McLaughlin moves to 119, Grosjean on 115, Newgarden on 105, Power on 104, so he's still there. Dixon's dropped a bit though, down to 98. Kirkwood, I should say, on 92, and then Herter on 85. So it's very, very tight. Armstrong still the leading rookie. Great performance from Marcus Armstrong today to come from the back of the field to finish just outside the top 10. That was a great, solid drive, and it proves that he knows what he's up to in this thing. So come more of these events, I think that we will see Marcus Armstrong get stronger and stronger. Championship's well alive. Can't read a lot into it at this stage. All you know is that you've got to be in the hunt. No double points at Indy this year, which I think is a great thing. I've whinged about that for the past few years, but now we have a solid championship driven purely by race results per race and no double points in there. So that will be great to see. In Indy next, Hunter McElroy, another Kiwi there, had a great performance in qualifying, finishing 4th, but unfortunately during the race, not quite the way that Hunter would have liked it, and dropped into 13th place in the race. And he's got a little bit of homework to do, but he's very strong at the IMS road course, and that's where Indy next races next. So it'll be good to see him there, and I'm sure that there's plenty that can come back from Hunter. They had a very big break from St. Pete to this race for Indy next, and I personally think it was too long a break. It's a long time to not be in a race car. But anyway, same rules for everyone, as they say, and that's the way it goes. Those championships are all firmly alive. Other thing that happened over the weekend, of course, V8 Supercars in Australia, and we'll talk about that some other time. Formula One, I'm just going to comment on this. Baku, the first sprint race of the year. What did I think of that? And the new sprint race qualifying, as they're calling it. I thought it was pretty average, actually. Yes, if you're a paying spectator, you're getting more bang for your buck. But I don't know, it didn't really sit that well with me. I've seen the race as well, and the race was average. I'm not a fan of the Baku circuit. Sure, it's got a big long straight and very demanding, but tight narrow walls and things. It just, in some ways, to me, it's not about the spirit of Formula One. So I was a little bit anti that. Good to see Red Bull doing kind of what Red Bull are probably going to do all season long. Ferrari, they're there or thereabouts. Some of the others were struggling a little bit. Alonso's still got that bit of Alonso magic in him. The only other comment I would make would be that what happened on the last lap, which is under investigation by the FIA, against the FIA, and that's for allowing photographers into what was a live pit lane at that stage. Sebastian Ocon came into the pit lane only to realise that there was all these photographers around the Parc Ferme area ready for the magic moment after the race, and nearly collected a few of them. Very, very dangerous situation. Thankfully, no one got affected by it whatsoever, but it's certainly something that needs to be looked at. So Formula One's in for a big run of races. They're back off to Miami as well, so they're firmly into it. As for IndyCar, the Indy Grand Prix, then they've got the 500, then they've got Detroit, so it's game on for that championship. Very pleased to say that we will be at every event from now on for the next few weeks anyway, and we will be both at the Indy Grand Prix, the Indy 500, and then the new Detroit street race as well. So we'll be doing race control or Racing World from those particular venues. And of course, for those of you in New Zealand, as we've said before, very, very proud to say that the doco Kiwis Born to Fly will be airing on Sky Sport this year, probably around the August mark. Big thanks again to everyone at Penske Entertainment for the support and everything on this project, and the shooting is well underway right now, and we look forward to presenting that to New Zealand viewers in the coming months. Fingers crossed, as they say, got to make the show first. But anyway, thanks again for watching Racing World. We'll see you again in just over a week and a bit's time from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.